Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Vegan Duet podcast. Today, we have a special guest with us, our mom, Nita, who's been vegan for around the same amount of time as we have, 3 years or so. And today, we're going to ask my mom a couple of questions about how her experience has been going vegan and some tips she may have for other people considering to go vegan as well. Just something I wanted to mention before we start is that Nimmu and I have been extremely lucky to grow up in a supportive household, and we only had to have about 4 or 5 conversations with our mom before she was completely on board with our entire family being vegan. So I guess one of the main questions we had when we were sort of compiling these questions was, what were your first thoughts when I came to you and I said that I wanted to go vegan?
The first concern I had was about your health. You've always been off the charts on the lower end, like even as a baby. And you were pretty skinny and underweight also as a teenager. So that was the major concern. The first thing I thought was, okay, we'll try it out for a while. We'll do your blood work. We'll see how your numbers are. And then we'll, if it doesn't work, I say, aha, it's not working. So you're going to switch back, right?
Yeah.
So I was almost going to use it as a weapon and say, okay, look, it's not working. Your numbers are really bad. So you're going to, switch back to having dairy again.
And then another question we had was, why do you think that you hadn't considered going vegan before I approached you about it?
It wasn't a mainstream thing because I had heard about the concept before and we were already vegetarians, right? It didn't seem like it was necessary to go to the other extreme and, give up completely all animal products. So that was the reason why. The first thing that you're taught, like as a sentence, if you're learning to speak a language, for example, Hindi, right? So we say, "Gai doodh deti hai." So a cow gives you milk, but we are never taught that we take milk from a cow. So that conditioning was there. So we didn't think it was anything weird to have dairy, right?
Very true. And also, like in advertisements on TV and stuff, I feel like, especially in India, we see advertisements that milk helps you grow tall and you need milk in order to have strong bones, and all these like advertisements that you just watch growing up throughout your childhood. So you don't even question the fact that it may not be necessary for you. It's sort of just assumed that this is something your grandparents have told you need, and your parents have told you need, so you need it for sure.
Another thing is our day-to-day lives, right, would change so much if you didn't have dairy, right? You start your day with a cup of coffee as an adult, or a cup of tea, based on chai or coffee, and you add milk in it. And so the thought of not having that comfort cup in the morning is like completely mind-boggling, right? And then another ingredient that's a must in most households in India is curd or yogurt. And so not having that is like completely like, how do I finish my meal? Because in India, we start with like dal rice, and then you have curd rice or lassi or something in the end. So not having that is like a major shift in your whole, concept of a meal. And then milk pretty much goes in everything. Like major sweets in India are made with milk or with ghee or butter or something. So that also, just the thought that I would have to give up so much in order to give up dairy, right? If I gave up dairy, I would be giving up so much. Right. And that seemed like an unreachable goal for me at that time.
Very
so
true.
That's the reason why, I didn't even consider going that
vegan.
route. Yeah.
Yeah. So how hard is it to veganize a diet that relies heavily on dairy and milk products, like an Indian diet, for example?
It was hard initially. It needs a lot of willpower. It's not easy at all. But once you decide to do it, you start finding alternatives. For example, these days, like in India, you get soy milk, right? So it took a little getting used to the taste of soy milk. When I started making, say, coffee or tea, I added soy milk, and it took a while to get used to it, maybe a couple of weeks. But then I did get used to it. And then the ghee that you use, right? In cooking, for example, you add a little bit of ghee to the seasoning, or like if you're making sweets, you have to fry things in ghee to give that, nice flavor. I found that using coconut oil was an excellent substitute. For example, we make a dish called shira in India, which is basically a rava or semolina fried in ghee. So using coconut oil, you get this nutty flavor to the semolina or rava. And then when you make shira out of it, it actually tastes good.
It does. I can attest to that. Like, I think I really like the veganized version of shira way more than the older version of shira that I used to have. Yeah.
So that switch helped. And I was also into a lot of baking, right? So I used to bake cakes for you guys and stuff. So so I substitute, instead of using butter, I started using oil.
Yeah.
And the cakes turn out moist and really good, because what happens when I bake, and I used to use butter, if you store the cake in the fridge, because of the nature of butter to kind of thicken under cold temperatures, the cake would lose its softness. Whereas when I baked it with oil, it stayed soft even though I put it in the fridge.
Very true.
And also, being vegan, you naturally stop grabbing anything from the store shelf and eating it, because you start reading the labels consciously, because you want to make sure that it doesn't have animal products. So that went out the door. So right off the bat, I started eating healthier, because I stopped buying snacks from off the shelf and eating
Very
it.
true.
So another major concern on a vegan diet is people say, oh, where will you get your proteins from? So that was something I had to consciously think about. And then that's when I decided that I'm going to cook one different kind of bean each day. Yeah. So we are blessed with so many different kinds of beans. It's amazing. And they all have their own unique flavor. So I started cooking 5 or 6 kinds of beans. For example, one day I would make black-eyed peas. The next day I would cook black beans. Then we had rajma or kidney beans, and then chana or chickpeas. And then we have 2 different kinds of chana. There's a brown chana and the white chana. So I used to cook one of them on a day. And then there's mung beans, which are excellent. I mean, there's amazing, especially if you sprout them. You can make so many kinds of dishes, and they're so healthy for you. So you have mung beans. And so right off the bat, I have 5 or 6 different kinds of beans, and each one has its own goodness and its own flavor.
Yeah.
And so the B12 was a concern.
Yeah.
And then because you're so knowledgeable, and you told me that we have to be on supplements for B12.
Yeah.
So we started, taking a daily, vitamin, like a multivitamin, multi-mineral kind of a supplement. So.
And it's we were taking that before too. We were taking multivites every day to ensure that we top off the remaining vitamins that we don't get from our diet every day, right?
Yes.
So it's not something unheard of that only vegans need to take, right? It's something that doctors recommend that most people take.
But we didn't end the story of your blood counts, right?
Oh yes, true.
Yes. So after she went vegan, and then we waited for a while, was it 3 months? We used to take the blood counts every 3 months. Remember the first few?
Yeah. So my mom wanted to challenge me essentially and be like, "See, you're not getting everything that you should be, so gotta switch back."
Yeah.
You know?
So, but then her numbers were perfectly fine. It was just the same as before she went vegan.
Nothing was off the charts.
Yes.
We were healthy vegetarians before, so nothing was off the charts before either. But as a vegan, I was still able to maintain healthy counts for everything, which was she was looking for that to be off, but it didn't work.
It didn't work.
So what about paneer and yogurt that are also integral to our Indian vegetarian diet? How did you find substitutes for that? Are there any substitutes that people can use?
Oh, so paneer is, I think, equivalent to ricotta cheese here. So that goes into a lot of Indian sweets and Indian dishes. For example, palak paneer or saag paneer. That's a favorite among folks in India and even around the world. The best substitute I found for paneer is extra firm tofu. And you make saag paneer out of it. You follow the same recipe as saag paneer. Instead of paneer, you substitute with tofu. It tastes just the same. I mean, there's absolutely no difference. Now, the texture of tofu, it takes a little getting used to, but all the masala in the saag paneer kind of just seeps into the tofu, and it just tastes amazing. I mean, yeah, you've had it.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, one of the chief complaints that we hear about tofu is that it's tasteless and gross, and how can it ever taste good in anything or ever compared to paneer. But trust me, once like a month has gone by, you will not be able to tell the difference between like what paneer tasted like and what tofu tastes like. As long as you cook the tofu properly so it's not like extra chewy, and then all the masala flavors are in it as well, it'll taste extremely delicious. Like trust me, I can't get enough of my mom's paneer now.
Yeah. There are some things that I'm still experimenting with. For example, some of the sweets that need paneer, for example.
Like rasmalai.
Rasmalai, yeah. So that one. Though gulab jamuns, I find that people use koa, which is kind of thickened milk. Instead of that, you can, I use a 2/3, 1/3 proportion of pancake mix, vegan pancake mix.
My mom's a genius, guys. She's so good at inventing things. Like, I can't believe she made a lot of these things vegan. Like, I was not expecting her. I was like, I just need the bare minimum food. Like, as long as you can just remove the milk from whatever you make, that's good enough for me. But she goes like all the ways. She makes cookies, cake, gulab jamuns, literally any Indian food you can think of, she tries to veganize it. And it's just amazing. I'm extremely lucky.
It's like a science, right? I'm a scientist, so I'm used to experimenting. So this is not new to me.
Yeah.
And cooking is science, basically. You need to kind of have the right proportions and make sure, you don't change too many things in a recipe at the same time.
Right.
Just try changing one thing and it'll work out. So yeah, it's a little bit of experimenting, but it's fun also and makes cooking interesting rather than the usual drab thing.
So, like, personally for you, why did you decide to go vegan? Because you could have just said, okay, you be vegan and I'll just continue being vegetarian. So what made you decide that you also wanted to be vegan?
I think a couple of talks we had. You mentioned a couple of documentaries which we ended up watching as a family, and that had a deep impact. And it kind of tied things that I hadn't thought about before came to my mind and I started thinking about them and looking at animals from a totally different perspective.
Right.
And I love animals. I love the way they look, especially baby animals, right? And I've seen like cows in India, because they're everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And in fact, as I was growing up, there would be this lady who would bring her cow and the calf, and she would milk right in front of our house, and then she would give us the milk, and the cows were so adorable.
Yeah.
And I would always see the cow kind of, licking the calf and trying to groom it, and the calf would like go under the cow and come on the other side, and
they're very playful creatures, very
and
sweet, very timid.
They were so cute. And so I started thinking about it, and especially like after becoming a mother, I thought, okay, how would I feel if my child was taken away from me, right? As a mother, that's a fear you have the most.
Yeah.
Your children are so important to you. And looking at the cow, I just realized, oh my God, they're going to take the calf away from the cow. How is the cow going to feel? And that was like, it really hit me at that time.
Like the reality is in dairy industries all over the world, they have to take the calf away from their mother within 24 hours of birth on average, because they need to ensure that most of the milk that the cow produces goes to the humans, because that's just going to increase the profitability of the entire system.
That is one aspect of it. The other aspect of it was that the male calf would be slaughtered right away. I mean, that was so heartrending. It's like there's this huge, especially in India, there's this huge movement for the girl child, right? There was a lot of female infanticide going on in the, I would say, 80s, 70s and 80s, because the girl child was not welcome in India, because along with the girl child came a whole lot of issues such as you have to collect money for the dowry, and it was a major commitment to have a girl child. So there was a lot of female infanticide, and to this day, determining, trying to find out the gender of a child before it's born in India is banned.
Illegal.
If there's such a hue and cry when a girl child is killed, how come there is no reaction when a male calf is killed? I mean, it's the same. It's a child.
It's a child after all. Yeah, it's
and
a baby.
You're killing it.
And it has 20 years of life that it could live perfectly healthily, perfectly free, just free from like this human inflicted torture. Yeah.
Just torture. Yeah. And that was another realization that I had after we had our discussion. I hadn't even thought about those things before because that's not how your psyche is, right? So that's not how you're conditioned. You're just conditioned to, you just assume that a cow's job is to give you milk, right?
Yeah.
And in rural India, it was okay in the good old days because the family would own a cow and the cow would give birth to a calf, and if it's a male calf, it would go and into the service of the farmer. They would have these plowing things with cows, with bulls dragging the plow. So it was okay then. But now with mechanized farming, it doesn't really make sense. So
it's never really made sense because we don't really need to drink the milk of another species. In the past, it used to be more of like a mutual relationship where the cow used to still have her calves and be able to like be treated well and revered.
And it was considered as part of the family, right?
And part of the family, right? Like just like a dog or a cat, like we just like included in our house and treated really well. But now, because of the mass production and just the requirements of like providing milk for a huge population, it's impractical to expect that all cows are treated with the respect that we want to give them. And we don't need to drink their milk, so it just makes sense now not to, right?
So another thing is a female cow produces milk only during a certain period of her life. So once it crosses that period, then the cow is pretty much useless, right?
Yeah.
So
in terms of profitability, right? So like as soon as the cow is born and able to have kids, she's just impregnated over and over for 3 to 5 years until in that 5th or 6th year, her milk supply declines, even if she can still get pregnant. And so it's not profitable for the farmers to keep her anymore. So they eventually send her to be slaughtered anyway. So even if you are just a vegetarian and you're only drinking like milk, you're still contributing to needless death. Like that mother cow could have survived another 20 years up till her normal lifespan, free of like human confinement, but now she has to die at like an early age of 5, and for what cause? Just so that we can have a pleasure of like a 20-minute meal or paneer for like 5 minutes, which we don't even think about after.
It's not even 5 minutes. Food stays in your mouth for what, 10 seconds?
Yeah.
Maximum. And then, all this torture for those 8 seconds of pleasure, it doesn't seem to add up.
Yeah.
So another thing that I've heard, especially from the older generation in India, is I'm going to be around for, 3-4 years. Why should I would like to enjoy my morning cup of coffee or chai.
Yeah.
I really don't want to give it up. And then I think of it as you have at least 4 more years to get rid of all this bad karma that you have, right?
Yeah.
The ultimate redemption.
There's no wrong or right time to go vegan. You can go vegan whenever you want. Like right now is preferable because the earlier you start, the more lives you're going to save, the less needless deaths are going to happen,
the less bad karma you're going to pick up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's just like do good so good can happen to you as well. And why hurt something that never asked to be hurt in the first place, and doesn't have a voice to speak the same. Like my mom's grandmom used to have this saying. Like,
So she used to say that you shouldn't hurt Muka prani. Muka prani is something that an animal that cannot speak, right? In India, you also have this saying ahimsa paramo dharmaha, which is basically means ahimsa, which is non-violence, is the best or the most supreme form of dharma, which is basically your duty, right? So having all of these indicate that people would be more caring, more compassionate. But the flip side is that we consume so much dairy and we are so addicted to the whole, system that we are not adhering to our own, principles, kind of. Like
exactly.
Where we are coming from.
We're sort of choosing to ignore that even happens, or even if we have a slight inclination about it, right? We we don't think it's necessary for us to give up something like that.
Yes, and it almost feels hypocritical because we pick and choose what we want to follow, right?
Yeah,
So-
like why not apply our morals in all
Yes,
situations?
yes.
Like we can show so much love towards dogs and cats, but why not show the same amount of love to cows? Would you stand for dogs being milked for their breast milk and us drinking dog milk? Would you stand for dogs being kept in tiny cages? Why do we allow that to happen to cows? They're also animals as well. They also have the ability to feel pain, show love, be mothers, be companions towards each other, be gentle. If you visit a farm sanctuary or even watch videos, you can see how gentle these creatures are. And they don't ever, I mean, you just don't want to harm these creatures. They're just so
them.
beautiful and
Yeah.
kind.
And why is it that if bullfighting is so bad and so egregious and that people have, a
Riots,
huge
protests about bullfighting.
Why is that kind of slaughter any different from a slaughter in a slaughterhouse?
The end result is that the animal ends up dead for a human's pleasure, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
the
exactly.
end result, and it's
Yes.
basically the same. So,
Yes.
And bulls and cows are also essentially
Yeah.
very similar creatures. So,
yeah.
yeah. So, how has veganism changed you or your perspectives on life in general?
Mostly, I think I've changed how I view other animals, other creatures that are around me. For example, like previously, if I would see a spider in the house or like a cockroach, the first instinct would be to swat it and and be done with it and flush it down or whatever. But now I consciously make an effort to pick up the insect or the offending pest and just put it out of
Just
the house.
leave it
I just
outside in the
leave it
garden.
outside, in the garden where it belongs. So I think my outlook has changed in the sense that I feel that I have no right to take another life. Right? I
Or
think,
use an animal at all in any way?
yes, and just be compassionate. You can never assume that only sentient beings are human beings. You cannot assume that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So anything that moves and has its own circle of life, right, has feelings,
Yeah.
probably, right?
It has
And-
nerves, it has a brain,
yeah,
or
I cannot assume that it doesn't, right? So I have no right to infringe on its right to live. So that's the way I look at it these days, and I feel like it's a very calming thought. It's I feel like I'm rid of the guilt. Previously, I would always have it at the back of my mind, like the feeling of guilt.
Yeah.
Especially after you started talking about veganism and I hadn't switched. I used to always feel guilty, but now I feel like I'm at peace. I'm like, okay, I'm not intentionally harming something else.
yeah. Yeah, I guess to like wrap up, we just wanted to say that think about what you're giving up, not as what you're giving up, but more that you're giving back to the environment. You're giving back the life to the animal for it to live, right? You're choosing not to contribute to taking away that life for no reason whatsoever. We don't need to drink milk to get any of the nutrients. We can get it from plants. So why not choose cruelty-free sources that are better for your health, better for the environment, better for the poor animal that doesn't have to be bred into this existence, into this system. So go vegan, and that's all for this episode. So we'll see you on the next episode of the Vegan Duet podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.